Hello, everyone. My name is Camellia. I am a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, also known as a PMH NP. I'm also a nursing and mental health enthusiast. And I'm actually getting on here briefly between visits, working telehealth. And I wanted to, something came up recently, and I wanted to sort of share this in real time. But if you followed me for a little bit, most of you have probably viewed the video that I did on some of the ins and outs of when you become a provider, some of the things you can expect, like the DEA, your NPI number, and kind of what all of that means. So essentially today, what I want to do is sort of expound upon that and talk about one thing in particular called a CAQH. And I want to talk about that because it is very important. It's going to be very important if you are a provider, if you're a new provider, if you will eventually be accepting insurance or be on insurance panels. And so I wanted to sort of talk about this because it's something that's not talked about as often, but just, so that you have some inkling as to what it all means. I like to share things that were more challenging for me and just sort of give you some information around those things because I can remember as a new provider, it was very, very challenging for me to understand all of the lingo and all the things around, what to register for, how to register, why it's important for me to register. And thankfully, I had a healthcare recruiter and an HR representative who was very helpful with my first job, who kind of walked me through the process. And she was well versed in managing new practitioners. And so I had that assistance. However, if you are a provider and you are working in this field, you've worked hard for your credentials, you've really worked to get where you are, you also want to be able to understand this information so that one, you're accountable, but secondly, you are protected and you understand why you're doing some of these things. So that's my reason for sharing the video today on something called a CAQH profile. That is what it stands for is Council for Affordable Quality Healthcare. You can essentially Google CAQH and it will bring up that database. What the CAQH is actually a sort of a one-stop shop for all providers, particularly if you are going to be on insurance panels. It is a place that insurance panels can have quick access to all of your information, including your credentials, your DEA number, your provider number, and all the information needed from a payer standpoint. Also, it is meant to mitigate some of the administrative tasks for providers. And so it serves, many purposes, but it is, once you create that profile, it is really helpful for insurance companies, which they will use it to access your information when it's time to pay out for services, in addition to you having a place that you have all of your information stored as a provider. So what will be required when you go and register for the CAQH or to register your profile? First of all, it's free. The second thing to know is that you will be required, it does take a fair amount of time to get started. You will be required to have all of the information that I talked about in the previous video. That includes your DEA number, your NPI number. It also requires your professional licensure information, so your board certification, your credentialing certification. Usually there's a certificate attached to the credentialing body, in addition to your things like your CV and your work history, if you have any at this point. It's very detailed. You can go in and specify things by date. You can also provide information for providers or supervising physicians. But it's really important to register there to get started. But also as you continue working, you will notice that many employers actually ask for your CAQH ID. So you will be establishing an ID number that will be specific to you. and it's for the same purpose. It is a one-stop shop to have all of your credentialing information, particularly if you're going to be working for an employer who accepts insurance. Okay, and your services will be actually through insurance panels. But essentially, that's what the CAQH is. It's really good to go on and do that once you have all of your information as a new provider. But like I said, to update that information as you move forward, particularly your work history and things like that. You also have to grant access to these companies to be able to access your CAQH information. So there's usually a form required for each insurance panel that you'll be prompted to do once you get that profile established. Okay, so just know that if you hear the term CAQH, it is a part of the process as a provider. Do understand what the reason for that is and kind of get familiar with your profile, getting that established and updating that as needed. If you are going to be working as an APRN or a provider, nurse practitioner, this is not specific to a PMHNP. This is any nurse practitioner who will be practicing and will be listed as a healthcare provider. Okay. If you guys have any questions about this video is meant to be short and sweet, but this is really just sort of an addendum to the other video that I did a while back on the DEA and the MPI number and some of the other ins and outs. But if you have questions or comments, definitely message me below, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.